Hello and welcome to part 3 of the 3-part nation guide series for War Thunder. In this episode, we'll be going over Italy, France, and Sweden. If you haven't watched part 1 or 2, the links will be in the description. As always, subtitles and timestamps are available if you need them. Enough of the rambling, let's get to the guide. Italian tanks, the laughingstock of all armored vehicles in World War II. Is this reputation also in the game? Let's find out. The Italian tank tree is split up into 4 different lines. The light tank / light tank destroyer line, the medium tank line, the SPAA line, and the tank destroyer line. As you can see, the Italian tech tree is different from all the other ones. Instead of focusing on firepower and armor, the Italians focus on firepower and mobility, usually not having much armor. This results in a very unique playstyle, generally consisting of flanking and ambushing. When the match begins, slam on the pedal and drive to a good location. Once you find a good outlook on the enemy tanks, shoot a couple of them and quickly relocate. If used correctly, these tanks can be a major pain for the enemy team, disrupting their progress to the objectives. Tiers 1 and 2 are mainly what Italy used during World War II. These are somewhat fast tanks with quick firing cannons and no armor, just like any other Tier 1 tank. As usual, Tier 2 is where you see some of the more interesting vehicles. You'll get your first American Lend-Lease tank, the M3A3. Unsurprisingly, the Stuart is a very decent light tank, capable of zooming around and dealing some damage. This is also where the medium tank line started to take shape. You start off with the Panzer III and P40. These two are excellent medium tanks, with relatively good armor and mobility for their BRs. As for the tank destroyer line, you get the Semoventes. They're sort of like a less armored Stogs that still pack a punch. While their mobility isn't the best, you can still find a decent position and snipe some enemies. Moving on to Tier 3, you'll see a lot more foreign tanks. Some examples are Shermans, Stogs, and even an M18. While they might not be Italian, they still are very good vehicles. The light tank line starts off with the M24. While it isn't anything special, it'll still be a good addition to your lineup. The Beretta 501 and the M18 are where it really starts to shine though. They are extremely fast glass cannons with great firepower. You can easily traverse the map and take out a good portion of the enemy team. The medium tank line consists of Shermans, which, as mentioned in part 1, are great support tanks. The M41C and the Sherman 5C have the excellent 17 pounder gun, which can take care of anything at its BR. The tank destroyer line is quite good as well. You continue with the Semoventes, and you also get a Stug 3 as a nice bonus. The Semovente M41 is a bit different than what you're used to though. It's more like the German Marder 3. Use it carefully and you can rack up a nice amount of kills. And of course, who could forget the R3? This is the anti-air vehicle you'll be using all the way to Tier 5. It's the fastest thing at its BR, and has surprisingly good penetration for an anti-air vehicle. You can use this like a light tank, flank and ambush your enemies and quickly relocate. And along the way, enjoy the hate mail you get as you tear your enemies to pieces. Tiers 4 and 5 over the Italians really set to shine. You get your first real speedy boy, the Fiat 6614. While it might not have a fully rotatable turret, it has deadly heat grenade rounds that can kill anything it faces. The Fiat turns into the Abo 74 and the R3 T106. These vehicles are similar to the Fiat but with much more speed. And arguably, the best Italian tank out of this tier is the Centauro. This thing is the very definition of speed and firepower. It has a stabilizer, great heat of vest rounds, thermal vision, and a top speed of 110 km an hour. These AFVs are great at sniping, flanking, and quickly securing the objective. But enough about light tanks, let's talk about the others as well. The medium tanks evolve into the M47 and later the OF40. These two tanks are lacking in armor, but great when it comes to firepower. You should stay out of sight and engage at medium to long distances. The support role is recommended. As for the tank destroyer line, you got the M36 and the M113. The M36 is an excellent tank destroyer, capable of killing enemies at medium to long distances. And the M113 is a tow missile launcher. While it isn't very nimble, it can effectively destroy most enemies you face. And now for top tier. The Italians continue with a speedy glass cannon strategy with 2 additional Centauros. One of them gets additional ERA packages along with a new APFSDS round, and the second one gets a brand new 120mm cannon. The OF40s become the Ariete tanks. They perform like Leopards but with less armor and more firepower. These are great sniping tanks with their excellent APFSDS rounds. The anti-air vehicles become some of the best in the game, the Saddam 25 Mistral and the Automatic. The Saddam has surface-to-air fire and forget missiles, while the Automatic can delete anything it faces. Speaking of missiles, the Dardo has plenty. You get 2 top attack missile launchers, along with a very quick firing autocannon loaded with APFSDS. This thing is very similar to the BMP2. Use it correctly and you can rack up a nice amount of kills. All in all, Italy has some great top tier vehicles with great firepower and mobility. Now for the pros and cons. The first couple of pros are that Italy has some of the best firepower at all tiers. Especially at tier 3 and above, you get some great cannons that can deal with any opponent. Most of the time, you get allied with Germany, which is one of the best allies you can get. Use your great light tanks to flank the enemy, and your mediums to support your allies to get a victory. Aside from that, your mobility is second to none, and this is especially true at tier 3 and up. Tanks like the M18, R3T106, and the Centauro are some of the fastest in the game, and their firepower is excellent as well. The Italian anti-air vehicles are arguably some of the best in the entire game. While they might be lacking in numbers, they have a great rate of fire, and they can easily take out enemy tanks as well. But speaking of aircraft, the Italians are lacking. While you do get Stukas at lower tiers, your only decent option for CAS is the SM91. The fighters can't carry much in terms of payload, and the repair costs are extremely high. Your CAS only starts to get better at tier 5. Your tanks also have some issues as well. One of the biggest problems of the Italian tanks is their armor. While your speed might save you from certain situations, when an enemy sees you, it'll usually mean death. You need to relocate after almost every kill, since the enemy will be looking for you. But if you're used to the Need for Speed playstyle, this won't be much of an issue. Here's the conclusion. Are the Italians beginner friendly? The Italians aren't the most beginner friendly nation, but it is still pretty easy to climb up the ranks. Which playstyles can be used with Italian tanks? Their playstyles consist of sniping and flanking, especially at higher tiers. However, the medium tanks can also support as well. How good is each tier? Tiers 1 and 2 are alright, but nothing special. Tier 3 is where it gets interesting, and tiers 4 and 5 have some great tanks. As for the top tier, they also get some strong choices. What are some tanks I should go for? Some of the more notable tanks include the P40, M43, Brito 501, M4 Tipo IC, M18, R3T106, the Centauros, the OF40, and the Arietes. Do the Italians have good close air support and anti-air? Italian close air support is quite lacking. The anti-airs, however, are a completely different story. And now for the big question, should you play Italy? If you're a beginner, it's an alright choice. While it isn't the best, you can still pick up the basics of the game with the Italian tanks. If you're looking for a new nation to grind, the Italians are an excellent choice. Their tanks are very fun at tiers 3 and above. You get to zoom around the map and kill enemies from where they least expected. Their unique playstyle brings an interesting challenge to any player, and it's worth checking out. And if you're just looking to have some fun, Italians are a great choice, and some of my favorite BRs are the 4.7 and 8.0.
Ah, la France, home of the autoloader and high repair cost. The French tech tree is one of the most extensive in the game. You get a light, medium, and a heavy tank line, an SPAA line, and a tank destroyer line. French tanks generally lack in armor but make up for it in their firepower, and their mobility is quite decent as well. The French tech tree is very diverse and you can pick a lot of different playstyles, the main ones boiling down to sniping, flanking, and supporting your allies. Their excellent firepower allows you to take down multiple enemies in a matter of seconds. But if you're seen, well, you're probably dead. So stay out of sight, kill a couple of enemies, relocate, and repeat. If used properly, French tanks are an absolutely destructive force and can easily turn the tide of a match. Tiers 1 and 2, oh boy, where do we begin? If you're unfamiliar with France, their early tier tanks are kind of a joke. Like the other nations, you don't get mobility, you don't get much firepower, and you certainly don't have any armor. Getting through this tier is extremely painful compared to any other tech tree. If you're persistent on grinding the French tree, you'll need to tank through tier 1, no pun intended, and get your first tier 2 tank. I highly recommend the B1 bis since it's a very reliable tank. Once you get the B1, feel free to research the Sherman, Stuart, and the Crusader. Once you have all these tanks, you should be good to go. Tier 3 is where it's a bit more bearable. You have some pretty decent tanks like the M4 SA50 and the ARL 44 or 44. The M4 A4 is a great example of the medium tank line, having average mobility, mediocre armor, and excellent firepower. This tank is great for sniping and supporting. The ARL 44 on the other hand should be used primarily as a sniper, with its great cannon and subpar mobility. While the armor is decent in the hull, the turret has no armor to speak of, so make sure to keep a good distance between you and your enemies. Moving on to the heavy tank line, you'll see the ARL 44 ACL-1A and the Jumbo. The ACL-1 is a more armored but less armed version of the tank destroyer. Similar to the Jumbo, you should use it as a frontline vehicle and take care of the objective. Just make sure not to expose your sides. Moving on, we see the most popular part of the French tech tree, tiers 4 and 5. These are the tiers where you get autoloaders and oscillating turrets. You'll find the infamous Lorraine 40T, AMX 50 and the AMX 13S. All three are excellent choices for all sorts of playstyles. Let's start with the light tank line. The AML 90 and the AMX 13s are very good examples of what a light tank should be. Great firepower, excellent mobility and little armor. It is great for flanking and sniping behind enemy lines. Now for the medium tank line, the Char 25T and the Lorraine 40T act more like light tanks instead of mediums, weirdly enough. Great mobility and of course firepower, but lacking when it comes to armor. You should watch out for enemies and keep distance from the front line. Moving on to the heavy tank line, we see the AMX M4 and the AMX 50s. Funnily enough, the first two actually play a bit more like medium tanks instead of heavies. The Serbia C is the only proper heavy tank. They have great firepower with average mobility and armor. A nice feature about these tanks is that their upper front plates are very angled, which will give you a boost to your protection. The MX-50 and the M4 should be used as support tanks, with their very fast reloads and powerful cannons. Serbias, on the other hand, can be used for brawling as well. And finally, we have the tank destroyers, the CA Lorraine and the Foch. Both tanks have low silhouettes with decent mobility and great firepower. The Foch especially is great as a tank destroyer with some of the best sloped armor against kinetic rounds. These two are great when used as snipers, and with their speed, you can easily find a good spot to kill a couple of enemies and relocate whenever you need to. As for top tier, the French Tech Tree takes a turn. Similar to l'Allemagne, the French abandon the big and heavy tanks in favor of more mobile and modern MBTs. You start off top tier with the AMX 30s, AMX 32 and AMX 40. These are very versatile tanks with great mobility and decent firepower. A downside however is your lack of heat FS. In real life, the French designed a special version of the heat shell. To oversimplify, the French heat shells were specially designed to prevent the inner layer of the shell from spinning. This means that your heat shells will act more like heat FS, but in War Thunder this isn't modeled in. Your shells will perform more like heat, and if you know anything about top tier, this means your shells will pretty much be useless. Aside from this issue, your tanks are decent when it comes to mobility. Much like the early German Leopard tanks, you can flank around your enemies and get some kills if you aim properly. Due to your lack of stabilizers though, you need to be careful. The Leclerc however solves all these problems. With a stabilizer and powerful APFSDS rounds, you can deal some serious damage to your enemies. Similar to the Leopard, this tank has great mobility but lacks armor. This is a great choice for all sorts of roles, including sniping, flanking and supporting. Time for the pros and cons. Pros are that France gets some of the best firepower in the game. Starting from tier 4, their cannons combined with their fast reload rates can take out the majority of enemies you face. Combine this with their decent mobility and you get a reliable method to take out the enemy. The French tanks are very diverse, having every single tank type in their tech tree, from light tanks all the way to tank destroyers. The French anti-air is sufficient to take out planes, and some of them even can take out enemy tanks. Their aircraft are quite good as well, and the American Lend-Lease Close Air Support has multiple payload options and can easily take out 2 or 3 tanks before needing to return to the airfield. And now for the cons. The biggest con in the French tech tree is tier 1. It is pure suffering and anguish, et putain de merde, je déteste tellement le niveau 1. Alors, and getting through it will likely take away all the motivation you had to get to tier 4. Speaking of tier 4, the repair costs of some of those tanks are stupidly high. Most games you play with them results in losing silver lines even if you won with 5 kills. And while the autoloaders can fire really quickly, you still need to reload them individually after each shot. This can take up to 15 seconds per shell, and that kinda defeats the purpose of reloading quickly. And now, for the conclusion. Is the French tech tree beginner friendly? Absolutely not. The French are probably the least beginner friendly nation in the game, along with Japan, and tier 1 alone will drive you insane. Which playstyles can be used with the French tanks? France is mainly focused on firepower and mobility. You can flank the light tanks, support with the mediums, and snipe with the tank destroyers. How good is each tier? Tiers 1 is abysmal, tier 2 and 3 is where it gets bearable, and tiers 4 and 5 are quite enjoyable when you're in a fair match. and top tier is alright, with the AMX-30s being nothing special, but Leclercs can be fun. What are some tanks I should go for? Some of the notable tanks are the B1, the Sherman, the RL44, AMX M4, Lorraine 40T, AMX 13s, the CA Lorraine and the Foch, the AMX 30s and the Leclerc. Do the French have good close air support and anti-air? Close air support is plenty, with the F4U Corsair and the 84 Skyraider. But the anti-air line suffers from the same problem as the Chinois. There just isn't enough vehicles to fill out most BRs. Otherwise, they're pretty decent. And now for the big question, should you play France? It depends. Are you a beginner? Then don't even think about playing France. But if you're looking for a new nation to grind, France is a pretty decent choice, if you can get past the early tiers of course. Their great firepower and mobility allows you to rack up kills easily, and the autoloaders are a unique experience. Just make sure to stock up on Silver Lions before heading to tier 4. But if you're just looking to have some fun, the French are a bit of a swing and miss, with up tiers and facing German wearable crybabies. However, 4.7 and 7.7 can sometimes be enjoyable. That was it for me, Monsieur Leo. Back to you, Chancellor Vac. And off to visit your mother!
Sweden is the newest nation in the game. While their strange tag names might get a bit confusing, the texture is actually quite simple to understand. They get a light and medium tank line, along with a tank destroyer line and an SBAA line. The Swedish tend to focus on speed and firepower for the light tanks, while the mediums can provide some support. The tank destroyers have some giant cannons that can obliterate any enemy. All in all, the Swedish are great at sniping, flanking, and supporting. Tiers 1 and 2 are pretty much the same as any other nation. Fast tanks, quick firing cannons, and little armor. The interesting thing about Sweden is that they get APDS at tier 1. This is unheard of in any other tech tree. The APDS has excellent penetration values, which allows you to kill even your most armored opponents like the B1 Bis or the Matilda. But something you should keep in mind is that APDS has almost no post-penetration effects, so if you want to kill your enemies quickly, you'll need to aim for weak spots. As for the tank destroyers, you get some casemate TDs with great cannons. While you don't have APDS, what you do get is pretty decent for the BRs. Overall, not too bad for low tier tanks. Moving on to tier 3, your options are limited. You only get one tank per line and the tanks lose their APDS. However, the shells they do get are pretty much on par with the APDS anyway. The medium tank line gets the lot torn. While it's pretty similar to the STRV M42 in terms of mobility, it packs a powerful 75mm cannon with some decent shells, along with a very fast reload. This is a great example of a medium tank, used to support your allies' advance. As for the light tank line, you get one of the best tank destroyers at SBR, the PVKV2. It has a strong 75mm cannon that can slap anything around. And that's not all, the turret is fully rotatable and has great gun depression. Keep your distance from the front line and you can rack up a nice amount of kills. Tiers 4 and 5 over, the Swedish tech tree does a complete 180. Since Sweden didn't take part in World War II, except helping the Nazis a little bit, they didn't have a place to test their tank designs. So, instead of continuing to create domestic designs, they bought other nations' successful tanks and improved on them. Take the STRV-81 for example. It's literally a Swedish Centurion Mark III. This carries on until tier 5, up until where you get your first S-tank. The S-tank is probably one of the most unique tanks in the game, having extremely angled armor and a very low profile. With its great mobility, you can easily find a good position to stay in and snipe your enemies. Something else to mention are the light tanks. Each tank is stranger than the other. You start off with a casemate tank destroyer, and then move on to an amphibious assault gun, and end up with a wheeled rocket launching tank destroyer. All these tanks are great when used as light tanks with their excellent mobility and firepower. You should get into a spot where the enemy won't expect you, and always stay on the move. As for the tank destroyers, you get a modern casemate and an ATGM TD. They perform like how you'd expect them to, the M43 having a powerful cannon and average armor, while the UDES is a meatball launcher. Find a good spot and snipe some enemies. And finally, we have tier 6 and 7. The Swedish have one more S-tank, and afterwards they get a modified Centurion Mark 10, a Leopard 2A4, and a modified Leopard 2A5. These tanks play exactly the same as their respective counterparts, so there's no need to go into too much detail. All you gotta know is they're some of the best top tier tanks in the game. The light tank line contains some interesting vehicles as well. You start off with another amphibious assault gun, and then an IFV, and then a light tank of sorts. The SCRF 9040C is very powerful, having an autocannon that can fire APFS DS shells at a very high rate. While it doesn't have any ATGMs, its fire rate makes up for it. As for the CV90-120, it's essentially a passive Object 120. Very powerful cannon, but no armor. It's a pretty decent glass cannon. Overall, the light tanks are great support vehicles. The tank destroyer line goes from an ATGM carriers to the STRF 9040 Bill. This is essentially the STRF 9040C, but with 2 ATGM launchers on its turret. The ATGMs are top attack missiles, so we won't need to aim for weak spots. If you hit the top of the turret, the enemy should go boom. And now for the pros and cons. The pros are that Sweden gets high penetrating shells very early on. Thanks to the APDS, you can pen basically anything at lower tiers. The light tanks are quite fun, and you can zoom around the battlefield with relative ease and take out enemies from where they least expect it. The medium tanks are easy to learn, and they can deliver a solid performance. The top tier tanks are unsurprisingly excellent, with the modified Leopard 2A4s and 2A5s. But that brings us to the cons. Arguably the biggest con of the Swedish tech tree is the repair costs. While this isn't much of an issue at lower tiers, the repair costs really start to spike from tier 4 onwards. You'll need to get multiple kills per battle in order to break even. As for lower tier, the tanks aren't very good. While their shells might have good penetration, the post-penetration effects aren't optimal. Similar to the British, you lack explosive filler on most of your shells, which means you need to aim for weak spots. Another issue is the lack of close air support. The Swedish air tree mainly consists of fighters and bombers, meaning that you don't have much in terms of CAS. Your best options are lots of small bombs or a single big bomb. And now the conclusion. Is the Swedish tech tree beginner friendly? Not really. As I said in the pros and cons, low tier Swedish tanks lack explosive filler. You need to aim for weak spots, and so you need to have some knowledge before playing. Which playstyles can you use with Swedish tanks? The light tank line is great at flanking, the mediums are good at support, and the tank destroyers are a mix of sniping and supporting. How good is each tier? Tiers 1 and 2 are decent if you're experienced, but if you're not, they can be a bit painful. Tier 3 is a turning point, where you get some decent tanks in between the World War II and post-war designs. Tiers 4 and 5 include some of the best tanks for their BRs, with the Centurions, the Rocket R3, and the S-Tank. As for top tier, as I said, Sweden has some of the best vehicles. What are some tanks I should go for? Some of the best tanks are the Lago 1, the La Torn, PVKV2, the SDRV M43s, the SDRV 81, USH 405, the S-Tanks, the SDRF 9040 build, and the Leopards. Do the Swedish have good close air support and anti-air? Their tech tree is a bit lacking when it comes to CAS, but they do have some decent anti-air. Should I play Sweden? If you're a beginner, it's not recommended due to the lack of APHE. Like the British, get a tier 3 or 4 tank in a beginner-friendly nation first, and then come back to Sweden. If you're looking for a new nation to grind, Sweden is a pretty decent choice. It should be interesting with a variety of different tanks. And if you're just looking to have some fun, the Swedish are a decent option, and some fun VRs are 5.0 and 7.7.